Our Sunday lesson.
Well, good morning, everyone. There was a man, and he was told that he would only have 3 or 4 months to live. And he was asked, well, how do you feel being told that you only have this short amount of time to live? And he says, I'm so grateful for being alive right now. I'm so grateful for being alive. And every day he woke up with that attitude of, I'm so grateful I'm awake today to experience life. I get to do this today. I get to do that today. I get to see a child smile. I get to pay my bills. I get to all these different things that we so often just take as part of our life and we forget to be thankful for. Well, he ended up living an extra 15 years. So, because he was grateful for what he received, what he had, right where he was. And this is a really important ingredient in a spiritual understanding. Because what happens in when we start moving in our spiritual understanding, is a lot of times we see those places when we start that seem to be off. Seem to be those things that we don't want, those places where we have lack and limitation in our life. And this month we're talking a lot about prosperity because there's a lot of fear around not having enough of something, not having all that we think we should have. But you know, one of the things you have to do is you have to start where you are. You have to start right where you are at the moment. And you have to really know and appreciate what you have. Now, that doesn't mean when you're showing the appreciation that you're saying, oh, I appreciate that I'm lacking friends, or I appreciate that I don't have enough money in my pocket to get what I want. What you're appreciating is where you are right now. Every part of it. You're alive. You're breathing. And since you're alive and breathing and in this room, it allows you to change something. It allows you to become a new person. Every moment is a new beginning. It isn't that you have to stay stuck where you are, but you have to really appreciate where you are. And I have noticed many, many times in my life when I wanted to change something in my life, nothing would change until I started really enjoying and appreciating where I was right then. Where I was. How many of us would like more money? Anybody in here would like more money? Of course. Many people come to the church and they want more money. And so what do we tell them? Well, you want more money, then what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Well, you could do all those little outside things. You could try to get an extra job, which most of us are up to our ears in things going on anyway. You could try a new direction, looking for a new job that might pay you more. But you're looking outside of yourself. You might hope to get an inheritance or win the lottery. I think we'd all like to win the lottery. So we buy those lottery tickets. And that's all good, but that's not getting down to what is going on in your life. So what's going on that's causing this lack and limitation? Well, there could be a lot of things. There's never one thing. Never one thing. So it's usually a combination of many little things going on. And one of them is quite often not appreciating what you have at the moment. I bet you everybody in this room can pay most of their bills every month. Would you agree on that? That most of us can pay most of our bills. Most of us are living in a house of some sort. We have a roof over our heads. We had some sort of transportation to get here, whether we walked, we rode a bike, or we drove in a car. We have those things. I see everybody here seems to have legs and arms and hands and a head that can think. We have ears we can hear with, eyes we can see with. And when we are focused on that lack and that limitation, we lose sight of all those things. We forget. We get so focused on the lack and limitation. We get so focused on not having enough money that becomes our world. That becomes the totality of who we are. We start thinking, this is who I am. Nobody. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough. I can't keep up with the neighbors. I don't know my job well enough. I get fired from this job and from that job. I don't seem to be getting anywhere in life. I wanted to be at this level, and I'm at this level. Life is so hard. It never gives you what you expect. And do you hear the downwell spiral that goes on when you do that? When you focus on that lack and limitation, you close in on yourself, and it gets darker, and it gets less freeing. It gets more self-introspective, but not on how you can change things, on how poor you are, on how much you don't have. Well, there's a way out of that well, and that is the appreciation. That is giving thanks for everything that we have. As Ernest Holmes says, appreciation, thankfulness opens us up, allows the harmony to come into our lives. And with that harmony allows love to come in, creativity, and joy. It allows things to change. Maybe not the way you think they're going to. And often it's a surprise, but thank goodness for surprises. I would hate to always get exactly what I thought I would get at the moment, because there's things out there that are a lot better. And Spirit is willing to offer you that. The universe is full of potential, full of activities, full of life. But if you draw into yourself and you forget about that life, what are you? Where are you? You're in a place of darkness. And so what we want to do is definitely be grateful, and be grateful for everything in your life. Even those people that give you a challenge, even those people that seem to get in your face and call you names or tell you that you're doing something wrong. Why is that? Because you're alive to hear it. My goodness, I'm alive. Somebody doesn't like me. Maybe I'm doing something right. Because I can guarantee you that when you're doing something that you really enjoy, when you're engaged in it, number one, most of the time you're not going to hear those people. And if you do, well, you know, when you're really actively being who you are, there's always going to be people that are afraid of that. There's going to be people that draw back from it because they're scared that you have something that they don't have, and they don't know how to get it. But we can share that. We can share that with others, and we can share it by being open and appreciative. When I was a little girl, I nearly drove my mom crazy because I would wake up in the morning, and I can remember it was a year or two that I did this. I would wake up and I'd come out and say, "Good morning, Flor, how are you? I so appreciate you." And then I'd get a cup of water. I got a cup, and I can put water in it. How wonderful. Thank you, God. And I went through this with everything, and as I said, it nearly drove my mom crazy because every time she looked at me, I was thanking something and appreciative of it. But it was such a wonderful lesson, and I try to continue to live that way, although I usually don't say it out loud all the time. I usually say it more internally. But it's that sense of sacredness that comes from appreciation that allows you to trust, allows you to know that Spirit is always there and willing to give fully and completely. Now, you often hear, we were just talking about a committed giving program. And this is similar to tithing. There is a similarity of it. Tithing is usually 10% of your income before taxes and all that. That is what tithing is considered. And where that came from, as many of you probably know, that comes from farming. And if you've ever done any farming or know anybody who's done any farming, when somebody does farming, when they reap the crop, they have to hold back a portion of that crop so that they have the seed to replant the next year. And if they want more, if they want to add another plot of land or expand what they're getting, then they have to hold back a portion more. And they have found that if they hold back 10%, that will produce what they had before. So when they want more, they hold back more than 10% of that. So that's where the idea of tithing comes from. If you want money, for instance, and you tithe 10% of that money, then it's like that comes back that much. If you want more, then you tithe a little more. Now, don't get me wrong, we don't tithe to get. We don't tithe for that reason. That is simply where it came from. The idea of tithing is to give because you're just so grateful. You give from that place of trust, knowing that it will be coming back, that you don't have to worry about that. You give out of love, knowing that as you give that, so shall you receive. And remember that it's always as you give, so shall you receive, not as you receive, then you give. There is a difference there. And so committed giving is a way of starting to move on that cycle if you want to move into tithing, actually. And committed giving, I'm going to challenge all of you to go home and just write down and try to figure out what is your percentage of giving. How much do you give every month? And what's your percentage according to what you bring in? It's kind of interesting to look at. When we first started it, it was like 2%. We'd give $20 a week, maybe $10 a week. You know, we started very little. And then we started on a program called the 4T, and you had to give, you had the tithe in the program. And we walked around the block, maybe 3 times, and it was a big city block, trying to decide whether we could do this or not, because we hadn't been donating that much money. And it was scary. It was scary because it felt like, well, I don't have that much. I'm not sure. I'm barely covering my bills now. What am I going to do if I'm giving a full 10%? And then we decided, you know, the class was for 3 months. We could experiment for 3 months and see what happened. See what happened. Well, the funny thing is we donated, we contributed that money, and we still had the money to do what we needed to do otherwise. And in fact, it started getting a little better. Things started unfolding that we weren't expecting that allowed more income to come in. And it wasn't that we were giving out of feeling we had to even. It was that we started appreciating all that we were already receiving. We have received so much of us, each one of us. We have this life. And here in the United States, our poorest person on the street is better than many people in a third world country. We are so fortunate. We are so fortunate here. And I know that by giving this tithing this way, it changed our lives as far as our attitude towards money and what that relationship was. Instead of having fear be a base of it, it started being a base of enough. And now, whenever I want more, I just do a little treatment, and Mike gets more overtime. Works real well. Works real well. And sometimes I get things too, like extra weddings and stuff. So really stop and think about that. Now, another area that you might not even think about tithing is your spiritual awareness. How much time are you tithing? Many of us want to grow spiritually, and that is the reason why we kind of come here, is we want to change our lives and we want to grow spiritually. How much time are you giving to your spiritual growth? Do you realize that if you gave 10% of your day, that's 2 hours 2 3/4 hours. I think I got the math right. 2 3/4 hours a day towards your spiritual understanding. Now, that doesn't mean you have to sit in meditation for 2 3/4 hours. But what you might consider is, how often do you say prayer? How often do you remember to just simply say, thank you? Thank you. Stop at a stop sign and see somebody walking across the street, instead of thinking, I'm in a hurry, would you please hurry? Walk a little faster. You give thanks for that person being there so that you can draw a deep breath and relax. And remember Spirit. How often do we get the one telephone call after another and we're going, oh, please, I can't get anything done, instead of being grateful for the person who's at the other end of the line and seeing them in spirit. It includes your reading. It includes a lot of things, but it's something to look at. Are you tithing to your spiritual growth? Taking classes, doing whatever you need to. Because I will tell each and every one of you, you get what you put in. You get back what you put in to something like that. So if you go to class and you just barely get by, you kind of read, but you don't really pay attention, you don't maybe do the homework or whatever, guess what you're going to get back? You get back some of what, for being in the class, but you don't get back the full experience of the class. And many of you have probably experienced that, taking a class or doing whatever you're doing. It's when you decide to give that full experience of yourself to what it is that you desire, that it comes back. It comes back with a richness that you had no idea could happen, with a richness and a joy. Often people sit down and start to do meditation for the first time, and what do? They're fidgeting, and they find this scratch, and boy, I ache, and it seems like you cannot get comfortable. Some people at that point get up and leave. Other people persist with it. You talk to anybody who has persisted with it, and they will tell you your life has changed. Their life has changed for the better. And oftentimes, you'll find that in that change, something happens that is profound. You touch something deep inside, which forever changes your life. I'm going to bring up one other aspect, which may be popular or not. This is a pretty good group. And that is the idea of figuring out what you value, what you truly value in life. There are people that value entertainment, and they find that a lot of their income, for instance, goes to entertainment. A lot of their time goes to entertainment. There are other people, artists in that find that they have their time and their money go in that direction. There are people that value medical society. There are people that value different areas in their life. Look at what you're valuing. You're giving your money and your time to what you value, whether you realize it or not. So take a look at your life and see, where are you putting your money and where is your value going? Because that will give you a hint. And if you don't like where you're putting it, if you find that you're putting a lot of value on fast foods, so you don't have to cook, and easy things like TV and things to zone you out, you might choose to change that. But you have to look at it first. You have to look at it and appreciate that this is where you've been. This is what's been going on in your life. But that you might want to move it into a different direction. And when you start appreciating where you are and appreciating that, then the new direction will open up for you. The new direction will open up. And so I ask you, do you value this church? And how much do you value it? Do you value being able to come together with people of like mind and talking to them on Sunday morning in classes in the social hall? What value does that give you? There are seminars out there that cost thousands of dollars for a weekend, and they give you the same things that we give you here. They give you the same information, and we give you the support afterwards. We don't limit it to one weekend that you get to hear somebody and maybe do some activities. We give you continued support all year long. We have people that will help you. We have classes to support you. And we have different things that will move you where you want to be. You just have to tell us where you want to go, and we'll help you. You know, do I value coming here more than I value going out and having a McDonald's hamburger? Is that value equal? Maybe you find that you value what you have here more than you value, I don't know, I can't think of it, but a new dress or a new piece of clothing, because it changes your life. Ask people around here if you aren't convinced of that. If you're brand new and you've never been in the church like this, ask some of the people, like the practitioners and the ministers and just some of the people you see doing volunteer work, and ask them, has this changed your life? Has this understanding done anything for you? And see what answer you get. Now, I'm a minister. I value this church immensely, and we tithe what we do. And the reason being is because I want to see it grow. I like the people here. This is home. This is a place I come to feel good about myself and about what I can give and what I can receive. I consider everybody here family. My family. I love working with the kids and doing things with the kids. That's where I prefer to put my time and my money. Is it always where I put my time and money? No, there's been phases in my life where it hasn't been. But there are certainly phases where it is. And I truly appreciate what we learn here, because it has changed my life 100%. And if you are interested in knowing that sometime, just ask me how it has changed me, because it has literally saved my life. I would not be here, I would not be on the planet today if it wasn't for it. And I think there are a lot of people that feel the same way. And so I invite you to go home and take a look at yourselves. Take a look at what's going on in your life. Where is your value going? What are you giving your time to? What are you giving your thoughts to? What's going on that you want to change? And being grateful for it all. Being grateful, because that gratitude puts you in harmony, puts you in peace, and allows the joy of spirit to bubble out. And I know that if you really want to give it a nudge, come work with the kids. Little plug for the kids. Anyway, so if you please join me in a spiritual mind treatment. Just relax for a moment and close your eyes if you choose to. There is only life, and that life is around me every moment of every day. All I have to do is look, and I see the vitality of life. I see the abundance of life. Look in a tree and see the beautiful leaves that are falling. I look on the ground and see the grass and the pebbles and the ground around me. I take a deep breath and I feel that abundance of air flowing in and out of my body. I think about my body and I feel the joy of being able to move, being able to function, being able to hold a hand of another person, to put my arms around someone and hug them, to being able to kiss someone, truly love another person. And I know without a doubt that I am one with Spirit, and that each person that I meet is one with me and Spirit. I have no doubt that we are all one, that we live in a house of spirit that has provided absolutely everything. And so I take it on as my job, as my responsibility to choose what it is I want, to put forth what it is that I want to change or have or be. And then I give it to Spirit and allow that to happen, to unfold. And I am just so grateful. I am grateful for the abundance around me. I am grateful for life flowing through me. I am grateful for the truth being expressed in every way, in every face that I see, because I choose to look with a sense of freedom. I choose to look for love, to look for joy, to look for peace, to look for abundance in everyone, in every situation that I'm in. And if lack pops its head up, I know it's not the truth. I know that it is not the truth. And I tell it to go away, that it's not who I am. The only truth that is that I'm spirit. I am spirit expressing right now, right here, and I have the choice as to how I express that. The truth is I'm whole, I'm complete, and I am now. And I know this truth for myself and each person in this room, and every person who is not here at the moment. Now is the time. Now I appreciate all that is. And as I release this, I know it is done already. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you.
Reverend Pam, we haven't heard from her in a while, and she'll be talking about the grateful heart.
Thank you, Mary. Well, we have an exciting topic this morning. We might not think of grateful or gratitude as so exciting, but it is, because we're talking about something today that is active, something that is active within us, something that is a power within us to create. We're speaking about an energy that we can stir up within our hearts, stir up within ourselves, and an energy that is causative, that causes in our life. We're not talking about just an emotional reaction to something outside of us, that we are dependent upon something outside of us to happen before we can feel this, no. But we're talking about a state of consciousness, a state of being, a state of consciousness that keeps us in an awareness of the flow of good that is constantly happening in our life, constantly there. So let's be clear that we're not talking about a need to be grateful to our source, to our Creator, because somehow God needs that gratitude from us. But we're talking about gratefulness as something that we do for ourselves, something that we stir up in our own hearts, and that's what matters, is what it's doing for us. You know, God doesn't need us to do things, but we need us to do things for ourselves. There's a Benedictine monk that some of you have heard of, I'm sure, Brother David Stendal-Rost, and he was born in Austria and has lived in New York since 1953 as a Benedictine monk, and he received training from the Benedictines in that very ancient tradition for 12 years. And then he received permission to study with the Zen Buddhist monks. And he is a great voice for the blending of East and West, and he has a lot of wonderful things to say about gratitude. And so today I've been kind of contemplating some of his ideas and listening to him and being inspired by him. for today. So I want to talk today about kind of a trio of truths. And the first truth that we'll be speaking about is that all prayer is thanksgiving in one form or another. And the second point is that thanksgiving is really blessing, synonymous with blessing. And thirdly, that blessing is really our aliveness. It's our aliveness, and that's why this is an exciting topic for us. So I'm going to look first at a few forms of prayer that most of us that came into this teaching came from some other place, some other teaching, it seems. Very few of us were raised from young children in the science of mind principles. And we use different forms of prayer in those different teachings. And so I'm going to look at those today and see how really they're not quite so different from our form of prayer. But I'll start out with our form of prayer, which we call spiritual mind treatment. And most of you are familiar with the idea of treatment. We use 5 steps. And our form of prayer really, we're lucky because it starts out from that place of gratefulness. We're starting out praying with thanks for that which has already been given us, knowing that our good is already there and that Spirit holds nothing back from us. And so we have the 5 steps. We have God is, meaning that in the beginning there was nothing but God, and out of Spirit, God, came creation. That means that God is everything that is. Secondly, I am. If that's the case, then I must be one with that. I must have that divinity within me. Then I accept whatever my good is, that I'm choosing to accept, greater prosperity or health or whatever. And then thanksgiving is the 4th. And then simply releasing that treatment into the universe to have it be done. And so it's very much an affirmative prayer. We know that this will be done. And that's how we're speaking it and how we're saying it. But there are some other types of prayers that most of us grew up with, and one of those prayers is the prayer of petition. And I'm speaking about these kind of from the Christian aspect because many times I've had people say to me or come to me in my life and say that they get worried because when they really get in a difficult place, when something really tough happens in life and we're really scared, there's a diagnosis or a loss of something, and we're kind of down there, we're out of our own reserves. What we're out of at that point is really, when we say that, our own ego self, our small self. But then what we know is that there is something greater. There is something that can bring us some comfort. And so people say to me, I sort of resort to that when I feel kind of in that tight spot. And I'm not doing treatment. I'm saying, please, God, help me, in this moment. And I always tell people, that's great. That's fine, because you're asking. That's where your origins were of prayer. And so we need not to worry about that. All of this stuff in every spiritual tradition and religion, they're techniques, but that's what they are. But the presence of God and the spirit of our prayer comes out of our hearts. It comes out of our faith that there is something, that we're calling to. So the prayer of petition is really a prayer of anticipated thanksgiving. Anticipated thanksgiving. So if a mother, for instance, gives her child a cookie, if the little child comes and says, Mommy, can I have a cookie? What does that mom do? She says, say please. Say please, right? And is she doing that just to show her power over that child? No, she's not. She's educating the child in being grateful. We educate our children in being grateful. Her anticipation, the child is anticipating. Already she knows she's going to get that cookie, right? A pretty good chance of it if her mom says, say please. So she's anticipating the gratefulness. But she's happier, really, in that interaction with her mother and using her magic words. Brings her greater happiness than it would if she just had that cookie handed to her. So ritual in that case builds up the child and makes a happier situation. Grateful people are happy people. If we are grateful for whatever we have, even if it be trouble, then we are happy. But if we are not grateful for whatever we have, then we can have the greatest joy. We can have the greatest thing given to us. But we won't be happy if we're not feeling the gratitude. So gratefulness is not the result, but rather the cause of happiness in our life. In the presence process, which a lot of you know that I've been involved with a lot in the last 2-3 years, the aim of that is to be fully alive, fully present in our lives in this moment, by realizing that we are the ones responsible. We, each of us, are responsible for the quality of our life experience. And Michael Brown, who's the author of the presence process and who created this process for us, he says, if we want to know that we have entered present moment awareness, he tells us an indicator is if our experience, no matter how comfortable or uncomfortable it may feel at any given moment, is infused with gratefulness. Not the kind of gratitude that's founded on compassion, on comparison, such as feeling grateful that we're in a better health or that we have more wealth or something than someone else. Neither is it the sort of gratitude that arises because life is unfolding how we want it to and everything is easy. Rather, it's gratitude that requires no reason. Gratitude for the invitation, journey, and gift of life itself. So similarly to the mother and the little child in the story of the cookie, the ritual of saying please, when we are praying for something, if we say, give us this day our daily bread, that means that we are not taking it for granted. We're not taking it for granted, and that we are already in anticipation of that good. Jesus said, the master teacher Jesus said to us, if you who are evil know how to give your children good things, how much more your Father in heaven? So petition, asking, springs out of a gratefulness that's already here in our heart. It's already here. Another type of prayer, a second type of prayer we might talk about, is a prayer of compunction. Prayer of compunction is a prayer of crying out in anguish for God's mercy. When we have participated in something that has separated us, created a sense of separation or alienation from God and us, or from our brothers and sisters, somehow with someone else, an interaction, we can cry out for God's mercy in that. In what sense would that prayer be gratefulness? It's gratefulness in that we really cannot even cry out for that unless we have already known that unconditional love. We already know that we are unconditionally loved. So that prayer is really an anticipated gratefulness for God's having bridged that gap, the ability of Spirit to bridge that gap that we have created between our brothers and sisters or us and nature. You know, we live on a planet where we can't hardly help contributing to, environmental pollution and so forth, We create gaps unknowingly sometimes, or between us and life. So gratefulness is preceding that prayer. We can only ask for mercy in the light of already having received it, having felt that comfort. If you had not already found me, you would not be looking for me, as God says to one of the great mystics. It's the gratefulness for already having found that unconditional love that created us, that makes us able to, and sometimes in anguish, sometimes when it's really hard, able to cry out to Spirit, cry out to God. But if we have a recognition, it's coming from that place of faith that there is some comfort for us. We now come to the prayer of praise and thanksgiving, and that is a much more obvious place where we see that thanksgiving, that is a prayer. Praise is a prayer of thanksgiving in the fullest sense. The prayer of praise is the full response of the human heart to the gratuitousness of all that is, the gratuitousness, the given nature of all that is. Everything there is gratuitous, and before we see that or before we recognize that, we can't even be grateful. We have to see everything against a background of nothing, if you will, a background of nothingness. And we do see that in our deepest heart. We're aware of the fact on some level that our very being here isn't necessary, and that we haven't really brought ourselves here of our own power in any way that we can identify. And in fact, that sometimes we wish we weren't even here. But the miracle, it's a miracle that there really is anything. And you know, as children, we are sensitive to that. Children, we see that. You talk to any little 6, 7-year-old about, wondering about why is there anything, And they're just these great little philosophers, They just immediately kind of wonder about it with you and get into it, and they kind of stand right in there, and they get it. They get the amazement. They understand it. And we all knew that. At one point, we all knew, we were all amazed that there is anything at all. And out of that amazement, all philosophy starts, all spirituality and all prayer really starts. And out of that amazement of the gratuitousness of anything at all being around, if we get that, comes the full response of an open heart, our open heart. And the important thing is to see that that response is also possible when the reality that is meeting us in that moment is sad or difficult or steep. When it's really hard, when it's problematic for us. And that full response of the heart, of being present, is available because if we respond, if we get in the habit of practicing every day, of being grateful for all of the things that are given to us, everything that's pleasant and nice in our world, then when something like that comes along, something difficult, we can know in our hearts, we've practiced and we can know in our heart, we can say, if the good giver of life who continuously gives me good in so many ways, constantly, every day, would that giver suddenly give me a bad gift? Something not good for me? Jesus said, when your children ask you for a fish, will you give them a snake? And when they ask you for an egg, would you give them a stone? So these symbols of life and death, when they ask you for life, when they ask you for bread or an egg, would you give them a snake or a stone? When they ask you for life, would you give them death? No, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that to anyone. So then how much more our Father in heaven, the source of our life, how could the source of life ever give us anything like death when we're asking for life? It sometimes looks like a dying, and sometimes it is a dying. But it can be a dying and is a dying into a greater life. Every day, every moment that we breathe, we're constantly experiencing life and death. Every in-breath and every out-breath. I breathe in, and that in-breath dies, and the out-breath is born. Breathing in, we're experiencing that life, it dies, and the out-breath is born. The out-breath dies, and the in-breath is born. We're constantly, every day, always the give and flow. The give and take is the flow of life. So gratefulness in prayer of praise and thanksgiving is the full response of the heart to reality as it is. Reality as it is. Stephen Mitchell is a translator of the book of Job and is a commentator on spiritual prose and poetry, and he has a great little poem about the Baal Shem Tov And the Baal Shem Tov was a Jewish Hasidic mystic. And he says about him, I love this, when he was a little child, that for him, prayer was a quality of attention to make so much room for the given that it can appear as gift. And that's a beautiful presentation of thanksgiving. Prayer as a kind of attention. We talk about that a lot around here, don't we? The importance of where we place our attention. What kind of attention? Attention that makes so much room for the given that it appears to us as gift. And the given is everything, really. It's everything in reality, because every moment that we're alive is a moment given to us. Every situation is a given situation. We live in a given world, all a gift. And we know that on some level, but we don't realize it because our attention isn't really strong enough to recognize that it's given. So when this attention is strong enough to make room for the given, that it can appear as gift, and not in the sense of just seeming that way or not really being that way, but appearing, that everything can appear, if you will, as a divine apparition, actually. The mystics always see this. I've been looking this week around in the last few weeks at nature, and that things actually become translucent for the presence of God in them. Translucent, the light of spirit, the light of life shines through everything that is if we are awake to it. In that same passage, he speaks about the great mystic, the Baal Shem Tov, burying little rabbits and little animals that he found in the woods, similarly to what we've all done or helped our children or grandchildren do. And he says about him, "You buried them gently and recited the blessing upon meeting sorrow face to face." So there's a Jewish blessing. There are actually hundreds of Jewish blessings, if anyone was raised in that tradition, for every different occasion, all the different occasions. The Orthodox Jewish people are every day, all the time, throughout their whole day, giving blessings, reciting blessings, for everything. And there really is a blessing, one blessing called upon meeting sorrow face to face. So that blessing is really thanksgiving, and that thanksgiving is really a blessing. So we've looked at how all prayer in one form or another is thanksgiving, and that thanksgiving is really a blessing. But then it's to take a look a little bit more clearly at what is a blessing, the idea of blessing. And we can do that mostly by thinking about the times, going in our hearts and thinking about the times that we have been truly blessed. And so there's a short poem that I'm going to read by William Butler Yeats that beautifully speaks about one of those situations that we've all experienced maybe at one time or another, a situation where we kind of suddenly out of the blue have an experience. Excuse me. We find ourselves suddenly kind of steeped in blessing. Some people, when they go to church, they expect, to have these experiences. And it doesn't really come as a surprise, maybe, in some traditions. But the surprise is that it really actually generally doesn't come at church. It usually doesn't happen there. It happens in other situations in our life. And in this case, in this poem, it happened to a man in his 50s who's in London, and he's a little bit bored, and he's just kind of sitting around, and he has a book and a cup, and is sitting there. And then out of the blue, he just has this magnificent, overwhelming experience. And psychologists call these experiences peak experiences, or we can call them mystical experiences, or communion with the divine, if you will. And so I'm going to read his little poem here by Yeats. It's a fourth stanza of a much longer poem. My 50th year had come and gone. I sat, a solitary man, in a crowded London shop, an open book, an empty cup on the marble tabletop. While on the shop street I gazed, my body of a sudden blazed, and 20 minutes more or less, it seemed so great, my happiness, that I was blessed and could bless. So he says that he was blessed and he could bless. And that is the remarkable thing, that blessing is something that flows through us. It's a circular kind of a thing. When we are blessed, we can bless. We do bless. It's not just that we're blessed and then that's the end of it. But the moment that we're blessed, we go around blessing others, blessing everything around us. We say a blessing before a meal, right? We call a blessing onto the meal, onto the food. We also call a blessing onto the source, and potentially into everything else that is around us. When we give thanks to somebody, there's that same double movement. If you receive a gift, you give thanks, and then that person that gave you that gift is receiving your thanks and receiving your blessing. So you've received a blessing, and you give one in return. And it's that circular motion, that movement, something that flows from one to the other, so it's very dynamic. And what is this movement? This movement in some traditions is called the Holy Spirit. It's the life force, it's the vitality that gives life to everything. It's how in the book of Genesis, our very creation is described, that God breathes life, breathes God's very life breath into our nostrils. And this flesh, otherwise just lump of flesh, becomes a human being, an alive, living creature. And so we receive this, and what can we do? Then we in turn can bless with our life. We can become blessers. What flows as blessing into us is God's very own life. And for us to be alive, just to be alive, is to bless. And so that would be the third point. So that all of our prayer is thanksgiving, that thanksgiving is blessing, and that blessing is our very aliveness. To be a human being, to be fully alive means to go around receiving blessings and blessing. And there's no difficulty with receiving blessings. We're receiving blessings all the time. The challenge is to be alert to those blessings that we're receiving. And if we become alert to those blessings, then we can start before we ever open our eyes in the morning, right? We're laying there in bed and we can be grateful, blessing that we have eyes even to open. So coming alive consists precisely in being alert and aware of these blessings. Thousands of blessings that we receive every single day, just that we can turn the water faucet on, We have water to brush our teeth in the morning. All of these things that we have that make our lives so easy. So even on a day when we have to go to the dentist, apologies to any dentists that are in the room today, but even on a day if we have to take an examination, or we have to grade a bunch of examinations, or on a day when we don't feel very well, when we feel sick, still in that day we are receiving all these thousands of blessings. And it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. But we have to wake up to it. We have to wake up. I have a little prayer. I brought a visual aid. A little prayer that I received at a Buddhist gathering that I try to say most every day, and it's by the Dalai Lama, and it's called A Precious Human Life. Every day, think as you wake up. Today, I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I am not going to waste it. I am going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So there's one more poem. It's Poetry Day today up here. One more poem by W.H. Auden, and it's called The Precious Five. And this poem is a 6-stanza poem, and in the first 5 stanzas, Auden examines each of our 5 senses, our seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. He's examining each of those. And then in the 6th stanza, he sums it all up, and he does that by addressing the 5 senses as if there's something outside of him, away from him, outside of him. And as if he could talk, perhaps, to these 5 precious companions that companion us throughout our lifetime. And so he says this: "Be happy, precious 5, so long as I'm alive, nor try to ask me what you should be happy for." He says, don't ask me what you should be happy for. Think, if it helps, of love or alcohol or gold, but do as you are told. So he gives the senses some ideas in case they need some ideas about what might help them to be happy. Think on whatever it is. And then he makes a comment about himself as a human being as opposed to his senses. He says, "I could, which you cannot, I could find reasons enough, fast enough, to face the sky and roar in anger and despair at what is going on, demanding that it name whoever is to blame." So our senses can't do that, right? They can just report. They just report to us. If we just stay in the present moment, we're just going to see this or see that. But he can, as a man, we can rail, and rave and blame. And then about that, he says, "The sky would only wait till all my breath was gone, and then reiterate, as if I wasn't there, that singular command I do not understand." And this is the one singular command that life gives to us. Bless what there is for being. Bless what there is for being, which has to be obeyed. For what else am I made for, agreeing or disagreeing? So gratefulness is that full response of the heart to reality as it is. Not just this reality or that reality. We don't get to choose, just for reality, for what it was. We're to be grateful even if we're confronted by something that's an outrage. Even if we're confronted by something that we feel should not be there. That is difficult. We don't have to be happy for the outrage or for the thing that's happening that we don't particularly like or want to be there, but that in every situation, we're there. I'm present. This is what is, and I'm called, and I can be grateful that I can maybe do something about it. I can maybe do something about it. In every situation, there are reasons to be grateful. And it's up to us to find those. Bless what there is for being, because every moment is a given moment. There's a gift within every gift, and that is the opportunity in every gift. And so not to look whether it's pleasant or unpleasant necessarily. Sometimes it's unpleasant because it's a challenge. We're being presented with a challenge. It's growing, right? We're growing, have you noticed? That seems to be what this life is about. So there's a challenge there to do something, but to see that the core of every gift is opportunity, always opportunity. Pema Chodron and some of the Buddhist teachings are so beautiful, and she says everything is workable. Everything is workable. We can use everything in our life to bring us home to the truth about ourselves and who we are. So most of the time, the opportunity is there to enjoy the thousands of blessings every day. But sometimes there's an opportunity to do something about it. So we have a challenge. We have a challenge there. And to find that means bless what there is for being. Be totally present. Be wholeheartedly present to everything that is gratuitously given to you. And that's what Auden tells us. Bless what there is for being. That singular command, I do not understand, because we don't understand as humans, do we? When something difficult assails us and is there, it's difficult. We don't always understand, because life is the process of coming to that. Life is that process in which we come to understand that one command that stands there before all others. Bless everything there is. Bless every given moment. What else am I made for, agreeing or disagreeing? Doesn't matter if we agree or disagree, you know. It's there. It's like that, you know, whether we like it or not. That is what is there for us. That life is simply that blessing. So there's one of those really remarkable passages in Scriptures which occurs twice, both in the Gospels and in the letters, and it's one of the few things that Jesus actually instructs us or tells us, and it's said two ways, and one of them is, bless those that curse you. You've heard, bless those that curse you, bless those that persecute you, in another way. So what is cursing? We don't use that in a formal sense like they did at one time, but cursing is to cut off, to cut somebody off, to alienate you, okay? But blessing is that which unites us. We receive it and we give through blessing the stream of life, or the Holy Spirit it might be called, that flows through us and through all those that we bless and flows back to us again. This flow of life. Blessing plugs us in to the world, to that which is alive in the world, and cursing cuts us off. You don't belong to me. Blessing bridges that gap. It unites us. It heals the cut that's been made with life, and it unites us and plugs us in. So blessing is something that we should be doing in our lives, because it will help us. It will help us. So we can ask ourselves, I'm kind of winding this up, how many blessings have I received? You know, we talk about counting our blessings. But the more important question is, how many blessings have I given? Have I given? And particularly, you know, in situations, we can always be giving blessings. In situations when we don't have anything else to do, you know, when we're in rush hour traffic, perhaps. When we're at the corner of Hilltop and Cypress at 4:45. And we're sitting in our car, right? We can curse. We can bless. Some of us have probably done a little of each. But it's an opportunity, you know, to just look around at the people in the cars around you, you know, and bless them. Because every one of those people, just like you, we all want the same things. We all want to have a good home and a good family and people that care about us and love us. We can bless them. May you have that. May you go home to a good home. May you have enough prosperity to feed your family, to live. May you be safe in your car, not have an accident on the road, you know. Just blessing the people around us, people we've never met. So finally, you know, we look at the fact that it's easy to bless, you know, the sunset, the beauty that we have around us, the moon, the Thanksgiving turkey, the Christmas presents. It's easy to bless in those situations. But we need to remember that Thanksgiving is really giving. And it isn't fully Thanksgiving until we do give. Until we do give. It means giving to those who really need, and it means giving of our time and our talent and our treasure to those kinds of things to support and build up those things around us that we believe in. So that's our community. Look in our community, at organizations, and at our center here. At all the people and places that reflect our values, that support us to know who we really are, to support us to know the truth of who we are, of our being, that help us to embody a greater quality of life. We must support our sources of inspiration so that they will be here for us. So all of this that we've been talking about, this grateful heart, it's not just an internal process, not just an inverted kind of thing, but it's really at the heart of our social concerns, the heart of our social life, the heart and the fabric of our society. So stirring up that energy in us of the grateful heart and causing greater happiness for ourselves and for the world. It will bring us absolutely greater happiness and bless the world. So we can take that away with us today, that all of our prayer, however it comes out of you in the moment, you're praying because there's faith, because that is thanksgiving, a form of thanksgiving, and that your thanksgiving is a blessing into the world, and that is by blessing that we are truly alive, truly here, truly present for one another. So if you'll just take a moment now and join with me in consciousness to accept this. So I accept and know that a grateful heart is what I have. It is within me. And it simply waits at times to be stirred, to be awakened, to be enlivened. And so I give thanks for this morning and for this place, for this center, and everyone who makes this place possible. I give the greatest thanks for this source of inspiration and for the way it works, that the more that I bless, the more I am blessed. The more that I give, the more I am given. I accept right here and now that I wake up to the fact that this is a given world, and that I wake up to the knowing that every moment that I'm on this planet is a given moment of life. And I give thanks for that, and I bless it, and I bless this place, and I bless each one here for taking the time, for making the effort to be inspired, to be present in life, to bless, to be a blessing. I give the greatest thanks for this circularity of motion, this double movement, always circulating around, blessing and being blessed, thanking and being thanked. Give thanks that this is the way it works. I accept that this is so, and so it is.